We have a quorum here, so I'm going to call this meeting to order. Can I have an agenda?
You can have my agenda.
The packet or?
There you go. Oh, I'll take that one then.
Right.
I didn't see that there was agendas over there.
All right. I'd like to have a roll call done, please. Could you do a roll call?
Schwartz.
Here.
Meshes.
Here.
Nowak.
Here.
Gendrick. Doherty.
Here.
Thorson.
Here.
Jensen.
All right, again, just to acknowledge we have a quorum. We have minutes up for approval. I'm hoping that people have had an opportunity to review those. If there's any, if someone would like to bring them forward in the form of a motion, please do.
Sure, make a motion to approve
Okay,
minutes.
Steve makes a motion, Bob seconds, okay. Any discussion or additions or deletions from the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. This is the moment for public comment. I see that we got a full house
so
here,
back here.
so. Greg, say anything you want. All right. Members' comments. Any of the members have any comments? Seeing none, moving right along. Administrators report.
All right. So your packets that I left for you on the table are a lot more robust than what I sent you last night because stuff was starting to trickle in after I sent it out. So if you want any of the items that I have added in, here you are. Anything that I added in, email to you guys, just let me know and I'll send those out. So let's talk real quick about census and staffing, as those are kind of the two main drivers of what's going on financially. Our census continues to stay up above 75. We're at 77 today in-house. Well, as of midnight last night, we were at 77. We did send somebody to the hospital earlier today, and I think there was an admission planned for some point today too, so it washes itself out. But we're still facing the staffing crunch, and it remains our single biggest challenge as far as getting the operation back on its feet. We are not running into any issues as far as putting enough people on the floors when we use agency or supplemental staffing, but our own full-time and part-time staff is still has not caught up to where we want it to be. There's a lot of good signs. We are starting to see a little bit more activity as far as applications and interviews, but we have a ways to go yet. And I've said it before, and I told the staff this when we did our multiple all-staff meetings last month. The single greatest threat to this operation is staffing. Without that, we can't do the other things that we want to do, and it doesn't allow us to get into a good financial position. The financial reports do look like we've stabilized out now, at least, where we've kind of gotten into a $1 million or so, where it looks like we'll stay at that number, maybe a little bit higher as we close out the year as far as our loss. But unfortunately, because of the way the staffing was earlier in the year and holding the census down, we are going to miss our financial targets. That's something we are really actively working on is on the recruiting side. We did have an unexpected change in my leadership team a couple weeks ago. My assistant director of nursing asked if she could step down back down into a floor nurse role. And I won't get into all the reasons behind that, but it was more for, her own personal health and just the grind that being an ADON takes. It worked out better for her to move into a role that the reality is, right, you look at the positives and the negatives. Some of the complaints that we were having in regards to our short-term rehab admissions, just the volume and the frequency and some of the things falling through the cracks, she fell into the role that will resolve every one of those, which is the role she came from. We gain, so it's like we lose on one side and we really gain on another, so it's not a net loss. She's with the organization, but we are in the search phase for a new assistant director of nursing and leadership position. Other than that, like I said, the staffing is starting to stabilize out. Any questions on staffing and census? Okay. In the back of your packet, I included an updated capital improvement and asset preservation plan. That really, for the most part, reflects, so every year, Tom Burrows and I, as we get ready to move into the next calendar year, we sit down and we go through it and say, what have we done? What do we need to add? What do we need to subtract? This year, it was a little bit different. So when we sat down and looked at it, we looked at it from two different perspectives. What major projects that we have on the horizon can we move out a little bit, just from a cash flow standpoint? Which ones need to be done? And then we added in an inflationary factor to every one of the numbers. Hey, how's it going?
Let the record reflect, Tanya. Please enter the meeting.
Is this okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So we updated all of the numbers going down with an inflationary factor, and I've made like 5 different speaking mistakes today, so I'll double check my number. It's 12% that we added into all the numbers. And the reason we did that is Tom Burrows and I were looking at what other projects in the county were projected to cost and are costing and what we're seeing in the market. And we feel that that's a reasonable number to add in to reflect what we expect to see inflation do over the next year, year and a half to those construction numbers. So that's what you guys have is an updated version of that. Many of our projects that we've had on the docket are coming to a conclusion. So the therapy room and all the ancillary projects that were planned after that, so the carpet renovation, the shower room renovation, the dining room work, all of that is done minus about a week's worth of work in one of the shower rooms. And then we're going to be able to get the final inspection and close out the project. I'll just throw one caveat out there. There are 2 screens that still haven't been delivered yet for the therapy space, so that we'll close out the project before those come in. And then there was like one other, they ran out of tile for one of the showers. So in the shower room, there's like a board that goes around and breaks up the top and the bottom of the shower, and it's just smaller tiles. We have enough of the large tiles to do it, and so they just finished it. And so we're at a point where we could either leave it or order more tile, which they said would be delivered in February. So there's a credit potential here because they didn't have the right material. So we are working with Manusos, the construction company, to find out what that credit is. If the credit is reasonable enough, we're going to take the credit, because unless I show you or told you that the tile was missing, you're not going to know. So there's nothing wrong with the shower room itself. It's just not the way it was spec'd out.
Well, it's not just the tile itself, it's also taking the shower out of commission for a certain period of time.
Yeah, we'll lose 2 weeks of it
Yeah.
again in the future.
I would say, even if it's close, make sure.
Well, Tom Burrows and I are of the same mindset on this one. Unless I told you that was the case,
Right.
you're not going to see it. And
Right.
functionally, everything looks good. So if fair credit, reasonable, we're done. And the work we'll close it out. So,
Good.
but we're in real good shape. And hopefully they're not in use right now, and I can show you guys how they turned out, because they really turned out great. So that will close all of the major projects except for the memory care one, which I'll wait a few minutes and we'll talk about that a little bit more significance. The financial report and the fund balance, or the fund strength reports, are in your packet that I handed out today. Glenda met with Bach Financial, I think it was at the end of the day yesterday, in regards to our account, so she wanted to wait until she had that before she sent over her report this morning. And if she didn't meet with them yesterday, it was first thing this morning. But that report that you have is as of this morning, so it's pretty current. And you'll see the financial trending and where we're at. We will end the year in the red, kind of about where we expected we'd be, about the 1.3, 1.5 mark. To kind of see where that finalizes itself out. Any thoughts on the financial and capital piece? All right, good. COVID changes. So we are expecting a significant change in the COVID requirements for long-term care. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a history on this, just so you understand why it's so significant for us. About a month ago, the CDC changed all of their guidelines for everybody as it relates to the healthcare setting, and with the masking, the screening in, all of the little nuances with it. The state of Illinois chose not to adopt the CDC guidelines at that time.
But every other state did?
Of course. But then, fast forward, 2 weeks ago, the governor came out and he said that he made that announcement that he was going to roll back all of the guidelines in Illinois for everyone but long-term care. And so that disparity between the long-term care expectations and the other healthcare providers changed even more dramatic than it was prior to that. So, for example, if you went into an assisted living facility, you don't have to wear a mask, you don't have to screen in, and this includes staff. But if you go into a skilled nursing facility on the same campus, just walking across the driveway, you would have to go through an entirely different process. This is a huge barrier for recruitment and retention. It just is. When a nurse can go, wide open in one setting and make more money, let's be honest, at the hospital they make more money than they do in long-term care, or in long-term care still under those same restrictions, where are you going to choose to take your business, right? So we've been advocating at the national level for parity between all the healthcare systems for a long time. We were notified last week on Friday that it is expected that Illinois will adopt formally the CDC guidelines sometime this week and bring long-term care into parity with the other settings. So this is a huge change. We are going through our current COVID protocols to see what needs to be tweaked, and at the end of the day, we're probably going to take the whole COVID protocol and trash it and start over because it's that significant of difference. Staff won't be expected to screen in at the beginning of every one of their shifts. Staff won't be expected to have to go through the bi-weekly, twice a week testing, single testing, for some of them they're not going to have to do. And so it just kind of relaxes the guidelines, but keeps some of the more forward-facing ones present. Some of your response protocols once a case is identified or once somebody tests positive in your building. The other thing that it does, and it has an impact on the financial side, is it gets away from if somebody in the community is coming into the building and they are not current with the bivalent booster, we don't have to automatically put them into isolation for a week or two. Okay, what it does is it allows us to put them right into if they're asymptomatic and no symptoms, right into a regular room, get them started with therapy right away. That has been an issue for us, and especially as how you fill your beds and staff your building when overnight you had that bivalent become approved and nobody in the community had it yet, and we had to change the way we admitted residents overnight. And since you couldn't put two people in the same room, it restricted our ability to fill all the beds that we had to work with. And so it was artificially holding the census down, even though we had the staff in place, all because of a change in the definition of fully vaccinated or current with vaccines. And this is kind of like the challenges we've had with the COVID protocols over the last, let's just say, year and a half. Once things started to normalize a little bit, it's just been change overnight and then respond to that. Or, the state of Illinois does this, I don't know why, but Friday at 4:30 in the afternoon, they release the guidelines that say effective immediately. Well, that's great, but now we've got the whole weekend to figure this out. You got to respond right away. Changes in how you admit, what do you expect with your staff, communicating that with the staff so that they understand, overnight if somebody tested positive, okay, well now tomorrow you have to be in here for a test. So, making sure that all of that happens, because what was happening is facilities were getting nailed by the Illinois Department of Public Health for not getting their testing frequency done on time. And any facility that adopted the CDC guidelines before public health, if the surveyors walked in, they got crucified because the state did not adopt those yet. So we're waiting until those drop to go wide open, but we expect that sometime this week. And if anything, masks in non-resident care areas will no longer be required. So if you're still out on the units, we're still gonna have to wear them. But it's always been kind of like ironic that we can sit in here for a quality assurance meeting at a table twice as long as this, 20-something people in this room for 2.5 hours, discuss things with masks on, and then the meeting ends, we roll in lunch, and everybody takes their mask off and eats. It's like, what are we doing here? So at least now that brings some of those rules back into being a little bit more consistent with what's happening. So, questions about the COVID guidelines changing? Okay. We are still considered outbreak status. Okay, we don't have any residents in the building with COVID, so when we go do the tour, there's absolutely nothing for anybody to worry about. But we did have 2 staff members test positive within 14 days of each other a couple weeks ago. So you got to run a full 2 14-day cycles before you, with nobody testing positive, before you're declared no longer an outbreak. We've been in outbreak status in 2022 for probably all but 30 days. And that doesn't mean, like I said, it doesn't mean we've had COVID cases in the building. It's just clearing that 2 full 14-day cycles with nobody testing positive, and that includes your staff. So, kids go back to school. We started seeing some staff test positive. Those get all added into the numbers. And the 2 staff members didn't work on the same floor, not in the same department, not on the same, there was no correlation between the 2. It's just the timing of it versus the exposure piece. And then that's hopefully some of the changes we're going to see is how that gets calculated as well. The last thing I'll cover before we get into memory care is just the resident council piece. Right now, the residents are very focused on the dining and some of the issues that we're running into with the changes that we made in the building. And we're still ironing them out. But the meal process is where our focus is right now for work that we need to improve. So, and it's not the food quality. It's the process of the meal and getting it there in a timely manner and still at the right temperatures and being super hot, that kind of stuff. So, any questions on any of that before I jump into memory care?
Was there anything that came from like the staff, I don't remember what your group is called, because it's not a union, it's your staff council?
Okay, so not since the last time we updated you. Their meeting would have been today,
Okay.
right now. So we moved it. And they've asked that we wait till after the new year to meet again, because we've got, with the holidays coming up, this place gets crazy. December's a wash. You might as well write the entire month off. And we're doing something this month that we want to wait and see what the impact is. So the county put together masterclass training for all of their senior level leaders. We're going to do that here. I'm doing it for my staff, and I'm doing it for every department head, assistant department head, every nurse, every CNA team leader, and then anyone else that wants to participate in it. So I've got 1 full day session tomorrow, then I got a series of like half day mornings, and then I got a series of half day afternoons, and then I got another full day set at the end of the month, and then I'm going to follow that up based on what I'm seeing schedule-wise, probably with another 2 full days in December. That should capture 90% of everybody I would like to see go through it.
Okay.
And then we'll have our meeting, and we'll see how that filters its way into the ether of the building. So I'm excited to get those started. Like I said, the first one's tomorrow. So we'll kind of see where we're at from there.
I'm sorry, what are those?
It's called Masterclass. And have you ever seen like the commercials? Usually they're on the internet where it's like Gordon Ramsay teaches you how to make a beef Wellington.
Sure, sure. Mhm.
Well, they have Gino Ariema, who is a
University of Connecticut.
Connecticut. Okay, I would have said it wrong. The University of Connecticut women's basketball coach, and he talks all about leadership. And it's a full day's worth of training where we watch a little bit of the video. There's a discussion. And we go back and watch a little bit more. The videos are great. It's very entertaining, but it's definitely a higher level. And so hopefully mixing my groups, because it's not all department heads on one day and then all assistant. I've got it mixed all over, from nurses and CNAs, all of it meshed in. So hopefully the conversations and discussions tease out some of the other things that we've been talking about too.
Okay.
And the questions that are in between the different video pieces are designed to draw some of that out. So I will definitely be following up with you after our next meeting, but we're looking at right after the first of the year.
All right, that's fantastic, thank you.
Yep. All right, anything else before we jump into memory care? Because that's the fun stuff. Maybe. All right. In your packet, I gave you guys a copy of the most recent rendering of the project. And so let me walk you through this real quick. MPA, when they did their project, they put together a preliminary drawing. That's the drawing that was floating around up until this moment. And in fact, you guys, other than my director of nursing, are the first people to see this outside of our working group. What this new way of doing this does is it allows us to not lose, in the other one that we would have lost 4 rooms, 2 on each side. We're not going to lose those in this drawing. And then the other thing it does is it maximizes the rooms that we have, doing as little work as possible so that we can keep our construction costs down. Okay? So the whole idea is that open floor concept or model. So if you look at the right-hand side, do you need a, oh, okay, sorry. You looked over at me, I thought you were looking for a.
No.
Okay. If you look at the right-hand side of that, where the courtyard is, that's all windows. And so if you're sitting in the dining room or anywhere in the point or the, of where the unit comes together, you have sunlight coming in at all times and it's wide open. And so taking advantage of the space that we have. And then there's the courtyard that's designed on the outside of that. So if you remember in the MPA drawing, the courtyard was in the middle. Mm-hmm. In this drawing, what we're trying to do is utilize as much of the building that we have already and putting the courtyard on the outside, fenced in, with a retaining wall and fenced in and everything else. And that allows us to gain some more efficiencies with the space. This is a 21-bed unit. So MPA had it spec'd at 26 beds. So where the differences are is that MPA looked at it as turning all of the beds that were 2-bedroom, or leaving all the rooms that were 2 bedrooms as 2 bedrooms. And so there would only be 2 private rooms on the entire unit. Talking with my team, some of the experts out in the field, you're not going to be able to sell that. The 2 bedrooms are just not what people are wanting, and if you're trying to get into a market that is private pay driven, not saying that we are looking for private pay residents, but it's a private pay driven market, what they're looking for is private rooms. And so what we've done here is we've been able to maximize as many private rooms as we could with some shared, 2 bedrooms. We added in, or we're going to build a new 2 bedrooms, so we're going to pick up 2 beds that way. And that leaves us with 21. I have run and modeled scenarios beyond your imagination of if it's 19 beds and all private and we charged X, can we make it work? If it's 21 beds and we do a blend of this model financially will work with what the numbers MPA gave us. And it's real important for us to kind of understand they set room rates at what they expected the room we would be charging. Using their numbers, so it's somewhat of an apples to apples, their numbers I can get to work with this format right here. The construction cost that they put as their budget was $3.1 million. After the architects have worked through this, and we added in the inflationary modifier, and we took it at a very high, so she ran it at, I think, $450 per square foot. We think the number is probably closer to 400, but we wanted to be a little bit on the conservative side. Our numbers are coming in at 3.2 to roughly 4.1 with the drawings that you see here. Now, there's a couple things in that number that are added in that we can back out and brings that number back more in line with the MPA thing. But these are some things that we want to add in or do. We know that our nurse call system and our Wander Guard system are obsolete, meaning that we can't get the parts for them anymore. And any new construction we do, we have to upgrade at least that section. Well, it really doesn't make sense when we open up the nurse call system to just do 21 beds and leave an obsolete system for the remainder of the house. So in that number I gave you, we're factoring in doing the nurse call system for the whole house at the same time. So you just, all new system, all new technology, and whatnot. We can back that number out and do that, and when we actually bring this before the county board for a bid, it will be its own separate line item, so that you can see this is the memory care project, this is the nurse call project, and then this is the landscaping piece, so we can kind of get a feel for how that stacks out. But that's one of those things that it's like once you open it up, you might as well get it done. And we were gonna, if you recall, I was telling you guys we were gonna need to do this anyway, so we're gonna marry the two projects and let Wold, the architect firm, spec it out and whatnot, so that we know that it all kind of marries itself together when it comes to the end. So that number's in there. The other thing that's in there that is something that we're kicking around that is not part of the memory care project, but it I think is a really nice piece, is the deck level, or the ceiling of the deck that we're building, we want to make it so that a second floor door can be added so residents can go outside that are on the second floor. And so that they have a patio or a deck above the deck cover for the courtyard we're building. The one complaint that we get from second floor residents, and it's been since the dawn of time, is access to the outdoors, right? You live on the first floor, you got 4 or 5 courtyards you can get into at any given time. Second floor, you got to come down the elevator. It's just a little bit more hassle. So we're trying to work in a way to meet that with what we're doing. And then all we're talking about is adding a new doorway up at on the second floor, but building a nice secured patio that they can walk out on and get a taste of the outdoors. That number is baked in, and they have that at, let's see, 200,000, roughly. So, you know, if we start backing the numbers of some of these things in, we get right back to where we needed to be, right around that 3.1, 3.2 that MPA spec'd out. So I guess it's a long way of trying to say that with the changes we've made, including the bed count, we are back to arriving at the same point we were with the MPA report, give or take a little bit. So Tom Burrows and I are still feeling very comfortable with where we're at with this project. One last thing, and this is probably your interest, we are going to have to add a generator. So we have a decision point to make. We don't have to make it today. But do we want to add a generator to just bring on the new systems so that it's the same as the rest of the building, meaning that the red outlets, the ones that are on the generator, nurse call, like the required stuff? Or do we want to get a generator big enough that we can go to always on, meaning that the entire house is fully powered at all times, no matter what the conditions are? That is not the current condition now. We have certain systems that are required to be on the emergency generator, and then we have a few that we've added on, but it does not power the air conditioning. It powers the heat, but a little bit different, right? Well, if we're going to add a generator at 150,000, does it make sense to say, well, we're going to spend 50, 75,000 more, get a bigger generator, and then go always on with both of them and through the whole house? We don't have to decide that today, but that number then impacts that 3.2 to 4.1 that we just talked about. You know, right now they're speccing it at 150,000 for a small generator. You know, it's not much more to go bigger and start thinking about, you know, July, was it 2nd, 2012? We had that series of days where we didn't have power. We had to bring in another backup generator to help power the air conditioning in the building. So, you know, Scott and I at that time had talked a little bit about what it would be like what we would need to do to add a generator to go always on. Well, here's an opportunity where we have to do it. So what level do we do it at? You know, the other thing to think about is, do you just sell the generator? And this is something we talked about way back when. Sell the generator you have now, and you bring in one that is significantly larger that can do all of it always on, and you're only running one. So we have a lot to talk about when we get down a little bit further into this project, but that's an area where your guys' input is going to be drawn upon. Besides some of the other, you know, do we do the deck? Do we not do the deck? That kind of stuff. Let's see. I think I covered everything on my list. Oh, no, I didn't. So last time we met, we talked about going out to bid for a construction manager. And so we did. We got proposals from, I think it was 4 or 5 different companies. We went through them with the architect and design firm. Tom Burrows and I talked through them. And then like 2 weeks into it, we both kind of came to the conclusion that we can do this ourselves and save a significant amount of budget space so that we can do some of the things that we're talking about and not over impact the budget. So we talked with Adam in purchasing, and he helped us work through the one question that we had, which is pre-qualifying the bidders. So, you know, because if we're going to bid out all of the work in the construction side rather than having a construction manager do it, how do we pre-qualify them? We worked through all of that, and we feel very confident that the amount of money that we can save and put back into the actual work of the project is worth the time and the investment from Tom and I to manage it. With this project wrapping up, so I don't have this one to worry about, there is a little bit extra bandwidth available to do that. So we're going to save a significant amount of money and put it right back into tangible things for the residents rather than a construction manager. So that bid got canceled. And we let the companies know that we're not moving forward. So that was a big update. I almost forgot that one entirely. So thoughts about the memory care unit?
Like everything you've said so far.
Yeah, sounds good.
I mean, I especially like the generator idea. I would certainly hate to be in the headlines for a heat wave when not have a facility, you know, with residents being air conditioned. I mean, to me, that negates any cost right there.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that at least when we have the opportunity, we should be thinking about it. And it's not like we're trying to squeeze this project into a very tight budget window and we don't have any room to work. I'm not saying that we should blow the doors off, but we do have room. So if it makes sense and it feels right given the numbers, yeah, it's probably the right thing to do in some level. Even if you were only go always on in that section of the building only, at least if there was some extenuating circumstance, you could bring your residents from the rest of the building into that section of the building for safety purposes and whatnot. So we're going to deal with that from that perspective, but there's more that we could do if we wanted to.
Again, I think the decisions we're making are long-term, you know, for the long-term benefits of the facility, of the residents. I think everything you've talked about is addressing that, you know, the patio. I mean, it's simple, you know, it's a 200,000, I mean, don't mean to diminish the 200,000, but the benefit of that is great.
Yeah, I mean, they're already, we were on a call, I think it was last week, and they had 3 of these concept drawings and different ideas, and this drawing number 4 is parts of all 3 of them, but they're already starting to think about what it would look like if you're standing there looking down, like what kind of plants do you need there to make it so that it doesn't feel like you're looking on the tops of trees, but it also kind of gives you that you're outside, you know, so I mean, it's exciting to hear what they're you know, conceptually thinking about. Now it's a matter of, can we do it? Can the soil hold it? You know, the ground, does it, if you put the deck out too far, do we lose the light coming in? And that's the whole concept of opening up that whole section to the sunlight. So there's a lot to it. There's a lot to it. Nothing at this point is set in stone. So if you guys take this home and you're looking at it and you're like, okay, that doesn't make any sense, or I'd like to see X or Y, let me know. My team and I have not gone through this at the level that I want to yet, so there will be some changes. Only on the call was me and Tara, Tom Burrows, and then the architect team. So I got this morning, sometime this week, possibly even Friday. I'm going to put this up on a huge screen for my leadership team, and we're going to go and try to blow this thing up. So expect that it'll look like this, but it might not look exactly like this when you get the next drawing. Because I want to talk about, okay, well, you see where the door is at, how hard is it going to be to get food on and off the unit? How hard is it going to be to get medical supplies and carts on and off the unit? How are we going to handle a situation like this? So we're going to go ahead and try to break this thing up pretty bad before we finalize it with the architects. So, any other thoughts? Yep.
You know, I'd like to kind of follow up what Steve was saying. You know, this sounds fantastic, and you know, and I hear what you're saying, and it does make a lot of sense based on your knowledge of the facility and taking a look at it. The one thing, though, that I want to step back at is the construction manager. And just like you have the foresight to foresee what's going on in this facility because this is your business, construction is a different type of business. And a construction manager might see something that can save money in a different way where you don't see it because that's not your focus. That's, you know, so I don't know if it's a smart move. And not that yourself and Tom couldn't do it.
I was going to say, this is
know
more of
you
a
guys-
TB thing than me. I'm a nursing home guy. That's
Yeah.
all I know.
Right. And I know Tom, I've listened to him, and he's talked about a lot of projects. He's had a lot of great ideas, but still, he's not the hands-on guy. And generally, a construction manager is a hands-on guy. I think it's kind of important that we look at that, even, you know, later on, if you decide, you know, the cost of it isn't worth it. I don't know, you know, in a building like this, you know, it's hard to say that. you know. I wouldn't want to discount it right from the
I
get-go.
was like, if I recall off the top of my head, it was close to a quarter.
25%, huh?
Yeah. To a
That's
quarter.
awful high.
25%?
It was like $250,000 to
Oh,
bring,
wait.
to bring in this person and on this project.
Well, in relationship to the overall cost of the project, 'cause that's how I remember.
Yep, hang on,
thinking
I
of it.
can give you that number.
Because I'm thinking 12% is on the high end, and something, you know,
Yeah, 25% is pretty high.
no, that would be ridiculous.
Yeah.
That-
But doesn't the engineering firm, the architect firm, have that construction manager
They
on
have-
staff?
They have staff that can help us with it, and that's why I think, you know what, I don't think I brought Tom.
Maybe I don't understand the full scope, I'm just,
I apologize, I
Say,
did not bring
Could
Tom
you-
Graff's,
could
or
you
Tom
forward that to
Burrows'
us
graph.
in an email, please?
Yeah. Tom broke it down. He had it all figured out,
And
had it
maybe
aligned with the projects that are going on in the county, and then the
whether or
number.
not we're all here, maybe we ought to have Tom give us a little bit more of an in-depth perspective as well.
Yeah.
I do agree with you on the generator, and I do agree with you on the construction manager. That makes me a little bit nervous. I would want more assurances with going without one. And I think maybe Tom can bring that to us, so.
that very well be, yeah.
I think that's more than fair.
And I think you're right, generally like 10, 12%.
Yeah.
And that would kind of fit in with your number if you were saying, 250,000, projects 3, so yeah,
Mhm.
it'd be around that mark.
Actually, if the project's 3 or 4, 250 might
Then
be
it'd be
cheap.
cheap, yep.
When they broke it
I
out,
managed a construction project at General Kinematics when we closed down the Barrington office and moved all the engineering and administrative to
Yes.
Crystal Lake, and we put up the addition there, and I was the construction manager, and
So
I
you're
didn't-
volunteering?
and, no, I just think if those involved have common sense and foresight on what they're looking for, I mean, I appreciate Bob's comment that, maybe, an experienced person might see something but also somebody that's got common sense sometimes sees stuff that could save.
And as
So-
I said,
So I think,
I
I don't think we should micromanage the staff if they feel confident in doing it.
No, and I
But
agree with
But
that.
I think it's a good idea to have Tom Burrows
Yeah.
maybe come and, as Jeff suggested,
I
and,
totally get it.
Yeah.
sell us a little bit on it.
I
guess,
assure
know.
you that I didn't let him off that hook real easily.
Right.
I don't believe, I can't believe I don't have his breakdown, but I've got all of our emails back and forth. I mean, he and I went at it, I shouldn't say went at it, but we tried to, as much as we can, to justify whether we should or shouldn't. And we put down, all the projects that we've done at Valley High and what the costs are and what the CM would have been. And then he did 2 or 3 other county projects currently going on, what the percentage was. I mean, so he kind of got a feel for it, and he was pretty sure that the right answer is we save the money on the budget, put it back in the project. But I'll have, I can't explain it like he explained it to me, so I'll ask him if he could do that.
I just like to point, I have a request for the members of this committee too, and those of us that remain, I strongly encourage you to try to stay on this committee, because we need to have some continuity into the next administration, so if fight for it, because we almost lost this once before.
And I would agree
It's
that
important.
from a continuity standpoint, you guys have been, over the last year and a half, you're up to speed now. You put somebody new, we're starting from zero.
Yep. Yep.
Any other thoughts or questions about the memory care project?
Well, I think we're all getting excited for the fourth.
Well, I'm excited about this damn memory care project.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it looks good.
And
I want to
mean,
get November 8th behind
Well, I
me.
guess I do have a question about Ricker. How much of this is pre-existing building, and how much is gonna be a new building?
So if you look at where the rooms are at, so
Yeah.
the upper and the bottom, yep, right like that, that's all existing. And then anything that comes off of where that, like if you took an angle and you drew it, like on an angle, that's all new. So, do you have a drawing up real quick? Can I just borrow it?
it was,
So like, this is all existing, these rooms that come through here.
Right.
And then if all of this through here is new, just this part right here. and then we've repurposed some of the spaces in here.
Right, I mean, because this is a wing, so this,
Yep.
we have building here.
When we go do the tour, I'm gonna walk you guys out
Okay.
there, and I'm gonna say, okay, where you're standing right now
Okay.
is gonna be on the outside of the unit, and when we'll stand on the other side of the wall, and you're in the new unit.
Oh, okay.
All right.
So it'll be a lot easier to
Right, yes, right.
visualize it, but yeah.
Because you're talking about, you're gonna put, and I do think it'd be nice to have a second floor walkout for the upstairs residents. You know, you're saying maybe it'll cover up, I mean, this is all in the future, right? I'm like, well, if it doesn't have to go out past your building, then it shouldn't really cover up your sun.
Everybody seems to think it's gonna work.
Yeah, okay, all right, I'm ready for the tour too, I guess.
All right, Greg and I were talking about this before, like, from a recording standpoint, does it make
Oh.
sense to bring the rest of the stuff forward and bring the meeting to a close, and then we can do the tour, and we're not on, like, pause the recording and come
Yeah,
back?
Let's do that.
Okay. Not that I want to tell you how to run your meeting.
No, I think it's a great idea. And I don't want to micromanage the meeting either.
You're the chair.
You are the manager,
Okay,
yes, yes.
then let's just skip 6.2 and move on to future topics. I don't have anything to contribute other than, you know, in the future, those of us that remain, please try to stay on this committee so we can continue some continuity. Anybody else?
No, good luck.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Is
thank you.
everybody up for
I know
re-election?
I know.
Everybody's up
is.
for reelection.
Kind of the-
I am not.
rerunning.
I am absolutely happily not going to be up for re-election, or excuse me, running again. But, I mean, knowing you are the way you are and you're as thorough as you are, I know whomever walks in or stays, you're gonna do a fantastic job getting them up
Well, I
to speed.
appreciate that.
And,
But yeah.
And
thank you all to, who are gonna run and hopefully be on this committee.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
6 of the 8 committee members are running again.
Yeah, I knew Paula wasn't running.
Right.
I was blown away when I heard that.
And
Do
she
we,
turned out.
have a need
She's
for
retiring.
Yeah.
approval of minutes?
I'm not,
We do have executive session minutes to
Yes.
approve?
Yeah.
Yep.
So-
Yes,
I
okay.
thought they were
so
on the agenda.
Let's entertain a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of executive session minutes. We have a motion and a second. Jeff and Teresa. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Jeff.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay, we're back in regular session.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second? Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right.